In February 2022, the world changed. When Russia invaded Ukraine, football, like everything else, was thrown into chaos. Leagues were disrupted, players were stranded, and futures suddenly uncertain. And for one young footballer, the impact was personal. Khvicha Kvaratskhelia, a name few could pronounce, a player few had heard of. At just 21, he was thriving at Rubin Kazan in Russia's top league, adored by fans, and finally stepping into the spotlight. Then, in March 2022, FIFA made a ruling. Foreign players could suspend their contracts in Russia due to the conflict. Overnight, Kvara's career was put on pause. His contract ended, and he returned home to Georgia, unsure what would come next. For most players, that might have been the end of the story, but for Kvara, it was the beginning of something far greater. He didn't know it then, but that decision to return home would change everything, from uncertainty to rebirth, from disruption to destiny. This is the story of how Khvicha Kvaratskhelia turned a moment of chaos into the start of a legend. Before Europe knew his name, Kvaratskhelia was just a boy from Tbilisi, a quiet, football-obsessed kid with a ball at his feet and a dream in his heart. He grew up in a modest family, in a country where football was still finding its place on the global map. His father, Badri Kvaratskhelia, had been a professional footballer, and from him, Kvara inherited not only talent, but an unshakable love for the game. While other kids treated football like a game, Kvara treated it like a mission. It wasn't just about scoring goals. Every touch mattered. Every dribble had purpose. Even as a teenager, he attacked defenders with danger, not hesitation. At just 16, he made his senior debut for Dinamo Batumi, Georgia's oldest and biggest club. And even then, there was something different about him. Unpredictable, fearless, alive. Scouts took notice. When he then took his first step abroad, alone to Lokomotiv Moscow, it was more than just a transfer. It was the first sign that this quiet boy from Tbilisi was ready for something bigger. And when Rubin Kazan came calling, offering a stage to truly prove himself, Kvara didn't hesitate. For a boy from Tbilisi, it was validation, proof that his purpose-driven childhood had a future. He was still just a teenager, but already the story of Kvara had begun. When Kvara arrived at Rubin Kazan in the summer of 2019, he was barely 18. A fresh face out of Georgia, he stepped into one of Russia's most demanding leagues, a place where physicality and grit often outshine flair. But on the pitch, there was nothing tentative about him. From his very first moments, it was clear, this kid was different. In a league defined by structure and strength, Kvara brought chaos and beauty. He didn't shy away from defenders twice his size, he danced around them. As coach Leonid Slutsky put it, the Russian league is very tough, very physical. You have to show not just your quality, but also your character. Under Slutsky's guidance, Kvara did more than adapt, he grew. He went from moments of brilliance to consistent threat. Slutsky described his approach. I tried to explain to him, if your finish goes in the middle of the net, the goal still counts. But he had this youthful maximalism to his game, this idea that he only wanted to score beautiful goals. That ambition didn't vanish, it evolved. Kvara learned that efficiency mattered just as much as elegance. By the 2020-21 season, he was Rubin's heartbeat. Fans voted him Player of the Month multiple times. His market value soared. Clubs across Europe began to lean in. Yet just as his rise gained momentum, the world shifted. As external pressures mounted and the conflict in Eastern Europe rippled into football, his contract and future came under threat. What looked like a moment of steady growth would suddenly become a turning point. Kvara's promise at Rubin Kazan wasn't just about goals or dribbles, it was a proving ground. It showed he could not just survive the toughest league in Russia, but thrive in it. And in doing so, he planted a stake. This wasn't a boy chasing a dream. This was a player about to build a legacy. By early 2022, Kvara was on the verge of something special. He'd become Rubin Kazan's brightest light, the fearless winger everyone in Russia was talking about. Big European clubs were watching. The rise felt unstoppable. And then, the world changed.
Reports of explosions in the Ukrainian capital as Vladimir Putin announces a special military operation in Ukraine.
FIFA intervened, announcing that all foreign players in Russia could suspend their contracts and leave the country. It was unprecedented. Players who had spent years building their careers were suddenly in limbo. For Kvara, the decision was clear, but not easy. He was 21 years old, playing the best football of his life. Yet overnight, everything he had worked for was caught in the middle of a geopolitical storm. One week he was scoring goals in Kazan. The next, he was packing his bags with no idea what came next. So, in March 2022, his contract was suspended under FIFA's emergency rule. And on the very same day, he signed with Dinamo Batumi back home in Georgia, a humble return to where it all began. Some called it a step back, but for Kvara, it was something else entirely. It was a reset, a moment to breathe, to start again, to find his rhythm far from the chaos of world headlines. And once the ball touched his feet again, it was clear. He hadn't lost a thing. In just a few weeks, he lit up the Georgian league. Goals, assists, magic on the wings. Every touch screamed hunger. Every celebration carried relief. He wasn't running from war, he was running toward destiny. Because from that quiet seaside city of Batumi, Europe was watching. And one club in southern Italy was about to take the biggest gamble of their season. When Kvara returned home to Georgia, there was no spotlight waiting for him, no press conferences, no grand announcement, just a quiet signing at Dinamo Batumi, a seaside club far removed from the chaos that had consumed his career. For most players, it might have felt like a step backwards, but for Kvara, it was exactly what he needed: peace. After years of pressure, of noise and uncertainty, he was finally home. Back to the same kind of pitches where he first learned the game. Back to the same kind of people who had believed in him from the start. And almost instantly, something clicked. In just 11 matches, he scored 8 goals and delivered 2 assists. But more than the numbers, it was the hunger, the drive, the joy. Every run carried intent. Every touch felt like a statement. I'm still here. As one Dinamo Batumi staff member recalled, every home game was full of supporters, and even our opponents' fans came just to see him play. Wherever we went, people followed. Everyone wanted to see Kvara. And in doing so, he reignited something far greater than his own career. Because for Georgia, Kvara wasn't just another footballer. He was living proof that their small, proud nation could still produce greatness. Even Dinamo Batumi's analysis coach, Davitadze, later reflected on what he witnessed. In the history of Georgia, we have had many talented players, but now I can say he is the best player we have ever had. Each week, the crowds grew louder, the headlines bigger, and across Europe, scouts started calling again. In May 2022, Napoli made their move, quietly, confidently. A €10 million signing that raised eyebrows at first, but for those who had watched him in Batumi, it made perfect sense. They saw something special. The same fire that had been burning since Tbilisi. Kvara left Georgia not as the boy who came home, but as the man who was ready to conquer Europe. From the ruins of disruption, he had found renewal. And soon, the world would know his name. When Kvara landed in Naples, few knew what to expect. He wasn't a superstar signing. No headlines, no hype, just a quiet €10 million transfer from Georgia. But what Napoli got was a revolution. From his very first touch in Serie A, it was obvious he wasn't afraid of the stage. He dribbled with purpose, moved with instinct, and played like he was still chasing dreams on the streets of Tbilisi. Fearless, expressive, unstoppable. By October, Naples was obsessed. Every match, every dribble, every goal, the city felt alive again. At the Stadio Diego Armando Maradona, fans began chanting a new name with reverence and awe. They called him Kvaradona. It wasn't just a nickname, It was a blessing, a tribute to the late Diego himself. Napoli supporters, known for their passion and poetry, saw in Kvara the same electricity, the same defiance, the same joy that once made Maradona a god in blue. He wasn't replacing Diego, no one ever could, but he carried his spirit forward. Italian media quickly ran out of superlatives. After years of uncertainty, Napoli fans were dreaming again. As The Guardian described, Kvaradona has Napoli fans daring to dream after a summer of discontent. He brought back belief. Even his former manager at Rubin Kazan, Leonid Slutsky, knew exactly what Napoli had found. I congratulate Napoli because they won the lottery. For next to nothing, they have a £100 million player. Goals against Juventus, assists against Milan, a fearless partnership with Victor Osimhen that terrorized Serie A defenses. It wasn't football, it was art. Napoli surged to the top of the table, playing the kind of football Italy hadn't seen in years. And for the first time in 33 years, the dream became reality. Napoli were champions of Italy again. When the final whistle blew, the city exploded. Flares, fireworks, tears. Murals of Kvara appeared alongside Maradona's, painted on walls across Naples. From Georgia to Campania, a new legend was born. That season, he finished with 14 goals and 17 assists across all competitions. He was crowned Serie A Player of the Season, the first Georgian in history to do so. The boy who once returned home uncertain now stood atop Italian football. But fame brought its own kind of chaos. As his face appeared on every billboard and highlight reel, social media twisted his image into something else. An AI-generated video went viral.
I love South Africa and I'm ready to play for my country and represent South Africa in the 2026 World Cup. I'm done with Georgia. Thank you.
It was fake, completely fabricated, but it spread fast. Thousands believed it. News outlets ran with it, and for the first time, Kvara wasn't fighting defenders, he was fighting distortion. He had gone from escaping war to surviving fame. But through it all, he stayed grounded, silent, focused, humble. Because Kvara knew this was only the beginning. Napoli had given him a stage, but destiny still had another chapter to write. By the start of 2025, the fairy tale in Naples had begun to fade. Napoli's title defense stumbled, tensions grew behind the scenes, and whispers of transfer bids filled the air. The club that once felt unstoppable suddenly looked uncertain, and when PSG came calling, offering a record deal, the next chapter of Kvara's story wrote itself. For some, it felt like betrayal, leaving the city that made him a hero, but for Kvara, it was evolution. He wasn't running from Naples, he was running toward history. Paris had become the stage for football's biggest stars, Messi, Mbappe, Neymar. But despite all the money and talent, one trophy had always eluded them: the Champions League. PSG wanted change, and they saw Kvara as the spark to ignite it. When he arrived in the French capital, the spotlight burned brighter than ever. New league, new pressure, new expectations. Reporters asked if he could replicate his magic outside Italy. Could he handle the weight of Paris, the critics, the chaos? Kvara smiled, said little, and went back to what he knew best, letting his football speak. Under Luis Enrique, he found freedom again. The Spaniards' new system wasn't built around egos, it was built around movement, intelligence, and courage. Kvara thrived. His flair fit perfectly in Enrique's controlled chaos, where every touch mattered and creativity was encouraged. And soon, that joy became contagious. PSG began to flow, pressing harder, attacking faster, playing with purpose. And at the heart of it all, Kvara was electric. His first goal at the Parc des Princes was vintage Kvara, a twisting run through defenders, a feint, and a curling finish that left the crowd breathless. It didn't take long for fans to fall in love. They saw the same hunger that had once lit up Naples, now painted in Parisian blue. Every dribble, every assist, every celebration. It felt like something was shifting at PSG. The arrogance was gone. The identity was reborn. By spring, PSG were unbeaten in Europe. And in every highlight, every key moment, there he was. The boy from Tbilisi, leading a team of stars not through fame, but through fight. Napoli had given him purpose, Paris gave him power, and as the Champions League knockout stages loomed, Kvara wasn't just chasing redemption anymore, he was chasing immortality. The night was tense. PSG, a club long defined by failure in Europe, stood 90 minutes away from rewriting its history. And at the center of it all was Kvara. From the very first whistle of the Champions League final, he played with the calm of a veteran and the hunger of a kid, chasing his dream. Every touch had purpose, every run had belief. He wasn't the loudest on the pitch, but his presence filled every corner of the game. Midway through the second half, PSG were already in full control, but they wanted a statement. In the 73rd minute, Dembele slipped a perfect through ball down the left. Kvaratskhelia timed his run to perfection, broke free with blistering pace, and fired low at the near post. 4-0. Game over. Inter's dream was dead, and PSG's decades-long wait for European glory was finally over. When the final whistle blew, Paris exploded in celebration. After years of heartbreak, PSG were finally champions of Europe. For Kvara, it was more than a trophy. It was the end of a journey that had begun in chaos. From a war-disrupted career to the pinnacle of world football, the boy from Tbilisi had conquered the continent. The story was already written on every face in the crowd, on every banner that bore his name. Napoli had crowned him a hero. Paris made him immortal. But in truth, Kvara had never changed. He was still the same boy who played for purpose, who chased the ball like it meant everything, who turned uncertainty into art. He didn't just survive the chaos, he became its master. He turned instability into inspiration, fear into fire, and every time he stepped on the pitch, he reminded the world that greatness isn't born from comfort, it's forged in resilience. From Tbilisi to Naples to Paris, his story became a symbol of hope. For Georgia, for football, for every dreamer who refuses to quit. And as the lights faded on that historic night, one thing was clear. The boy who escaped chaos had found his destiny. If you enjoyed this deep dive into Kvaratskhelia's story, check out the other documentaries on my channel. We've covered the rise and fall of football's biggest clubs and players. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe for more, and if you'd like to support the channel even further, consider becoming a member. Every bit of support helps keep these stories alive,